Sorry. Welcome back to React and MobX lecture. Last time we learned about the props of React components. In this class, I will make a component myself and have a time to practice how to use props. First, let's see what kind of practice we are going to do it. If you look at the textbook, this result screen on the left is the screen we'll make it today. We'll try to make a list of information about some specific books. So we are going to create a component called app and a component called book list and book list item as shown in the structure diagram on the right. First, the app component will be the component that becomes the root, including all components. Then the book list component that contains all the information about the book items, and the whole is the app component. We are going to make this list as a book list component. And we are going to create a component called book list item that's shown individual book information. But if you look at the structure, we have created a separate object called books. We are going to display some elements and some components on the screen. We need data such as images, title, and descriptions in this list. Basically, these data are fetched from the server. Since we are still in the process of creating a component, we will statically put information about books and images into a JavaScript object called books. Either the description or the URL where the images exist. So we first created the project and information about the book and the image for the book. I am trying to compose this UI as you can see with the JavaScript object information called this book. So before we proceed with this example of this project, you need to download some data through GitHub. Let's see the content. So you can go to the following URL for the textbook of the contents we have been teaching and the template for our practice now. I will put the URL on our video and also on the comment. If you go to the URL called React with MobX English from the Namasori GitHub, you can see a screen like this because it is a public available screen. You can directly access it. Now, if you go to books, there is a PDF file of the contents of calls you have been learned so far. And if you look at the bottom, it's called source template. And there is a folder called props template that we will be working on today. If you look at this, there are images files that we are going to use today. And you can see because it is a static data, there is a JavaScript file called books.js. When you open it, the book information will be in the form of objects in array. Then with this data, we are actually trying to construct UI with the screen that we just saw before. Then go to the URL I just mentioned. And after receiving this data, create a separate workspace and up to that workspace right away with the work environment open using your ID such as Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ, or Atom. I will proceed with practice. If you downloaded related materials through GitHub and then run Atom or IDE, I use Visual Studio Code. If you're ready to practice now that you have started up to IDE, we will start by creating a project one by one. Since we are conducting the practice with this React for the first time, of course we are going to conduct the practice project for the first time too. Except that the project was created through the CRA when setting up the development environment, so I will try to proceed from project creation one by one. Of course, in certain projects or specific examples, there may be cases where I create and provide the template itself, but in the first step, I will proceed one by one, from creating a project to installing related modules. Now, first of all, I created a separate workspace. Then I put the contents that we downloaded, called the previous temp folder, in the workspace separately. Of course, you can do it in a different format and place these related files. And then this content, I'm going to erase it, everything, so you can refer it. First, let's open a terminal. After opening a terminal, we need to create this project that we want to create in the workspace using a tool called Create React App. You can use a tool called CRA right away, or we can create it through MPX, NPM, or Yarn. I explained while setting up the development environment. Among them, I will use Yarn. Of course, it doesn't matter if you use npm. Now proceed to create using yarn. We are going to type create react dash app, and the name of the folder is the first project we created. First of all, how to create a name is to I'm going to give a number and then put the name called profs-exam. Of course, you can create it with a different name. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to create a project called props-exam. And then you will download related libraries through Yarn. After that, we will configure this package structure and we will start to make the corresponding project that we can carry out the React project through various tasks or any other things. Now, when this is done, this project will be created under the name we created in the workspace. Now I am finished. When it is finished, if you look at the folder structure, you will see a folder called Node Modules, Public, and SRC folders. When the structure is created like this, all the codes that we actually write will be located in the SRC folder. There are various files such as app.js, app.css, and all the other files. I'm going to delete some of this that I am not going to use it and proceed with it. You can just use them as they are, but I will delete the files that I don't use directly. When we are working on a project, we will install a variety of these modules during this exercise. However, when installing these modules, I will install them locally because they are used only in the project. Or most of them, I will install them locally. Or in the case of certain libraries or in the case of certain modules, it is possible to install them globally. All the modules we install will be installed in the Node Modules folder you see now. Since we made a project with CRA, all modules related to React will be included in the current Node Modules folder. Libraries related to React or React DOM will be installed locally in Node Modules. Let's open public. If you open public, there is one file that you need to look at carefully, and it is index.html file. When you open it, you can see there are all the metal information in the head, but if you go down to the body, you can see there is a div tag, and there will be a div tag with the name root sid. You can check it. If you look there, there is no content in the div tag. This index.html file you see right now is the first HTML file with blank spaces received in a single page application. In this div tag with the ID of this root, we create HTML tags with JavaScript code in this div tag, so that the components we make can be seen by the React library, apply CSS, and all related tasks with the div tag with an ID of root. You write everything in the tag, so the index that the first single page you receive from the server is viewing now, which is index.html file. If you look at the code for a moment, if you look at this src folder, there is a file called index.js. If you look at this, you can see a specific component in the render method of React DOM. And there is a component called app. This is to find an element with an ID of getElementById by ID and an ID of root of this document for a specific component, and then upload these components to it. Then this render method, this component that goes into the render method of React DOM will have the root that is the top level component. So let's check first that the index.html in public is the first single page we receive. Besides, I'm going to sort out the files a little now. How to organize? I will delete all unnecessary files, such as CSS files, and I don't need test.js file. Likewise, we will erase index.css file, and also I will delete the logo. And there are only 4 files remain. The code we are going to focus on is app.js and index.js. It won't change much, but first in app.js, let's remove the logo and the CSS file that we are not using it. And right now, it is also the component called app is made of functional component, and we will change this to a class-based component later. When you actually do the practice, I will leave only the div so that it won't give me any errors. You don't have to be the same as me. Later, when you create the component called app, you can just change this code. I'm in position where you're looking, so I'm going to delete all the unnecessary content so that I can see it more simply and right away. It doesn't matter if you write in the existing code, so delete all related CSS from the app. In index.js file, let's remove the index.css that we deleted. And also, I'm going to remove unnecessary comments. Now, basically, if you start yarn here, a blank page with nothing will appear. I will make this with the blank page open. Now, we'll move the image and static data that I gave as a template. First, the images that we gave for this book will be located in the public folder. Of course, we will change the name of the images of the folder, because if you look at the books inside the static data folder, the image URL is called book underbar images. So go to the public and create a new folder and name it as book underbar dash images, and then move each of the images into the folder. Now I put the book images in the public folder, and now I'm going to create 2 separate folders in src folder. The first folder that I'm going to create is called component. And in addition, we will make a book list component and then a book list item component in this folder. So we are going to make another new folder called static underbar data. And we are going to put books.js file inside this folder. Then I move all the template materials, static data, and image files to be downloaded through GitHub into our project. I don't care if I delete this temp folder now. Now we move all the images in the project called Profs Exam. Then we move the static data folder under the SRC folder called static data and the corresponding file containing the static data information called book. In this way, the basic configuration for self-practice is completed. But there is one more module that we need to install. That's what we are going to do is upload buttons. We will list and we will use various types of components here, like styles. For example, style sheets and various CSS related libraries. What that means is that we will use Material UI. It provides libraries with style sheets and various themes applied to React related components. Representatively, there is a Material UI and there is also a Semantic UI. Among them, we will use Material UI. Then how do we use Material UI? First, you have to go to the site materialui.com. Now, if you look at it, the URL is material-ui.com. If you go here, there is a site that explains how to use Material UI and how to use Material UI that will be applied to React components. Basically, if you go to the Material UI site, you can see on the left there is a menu button. If you click it, there's a menu item called Component. If you click it, it provides us how to use various components that can be used. If we are going to use a button, then when you click the button menu, it explains how various buttons appear and how to code to use them. Of course, we don't use Material UI very much deeply in our React class. Most of the components we used will use this Material UI components, but we will use styles and these parts to a minimum. Because we will focus on React and MobX, we have plans to make Material UI as a separate course. So if you're actually interested in Material UI, you can study while watching a separate lecture to be made in the future. Now we focus on React and use Material UI, but you only need to know that at least we use Material UI. So you will use this Material UI. If you want to use Material UI, go to the Getting Started menu and go to the installation. You can install it through npm or install through yarn. Type yarn add dash Material UI core. If you install it, you can use the buttons you saw a while ago and rest of the things that Material UI provides it. Then you have installed the Material UI and now you're ready to make your own components. Then we will proceed with the installation, but there is one part to be careful about here. I'm going to do the installation from the CRA command terminal, but you need to know your current location. I'm in the workspace right now, but I created this prop exam project in the workspace. But the Material UI is applied because it is installed in the prop exam, so you need to move it. So if you're going to go to the prop stub exam, we just created, you have to install it here. To install Material UI, yarn add material UI/core. Install it like this. Material UI will now be installed in our props exam. Then the installation on the node modules is finished. Now we can use any button or any components. Now if you do this far, we have all the preparations for the practice that we just saw in the results screen before to make the component. As time has passed, let's proceed to this point. Next time, we will make the components one by one and proceed with the actual implementation. Thank you for listening this lecture, and I hope you will follow the steps that we go through today's practice, and I hope I will see you again in the next lecture. Bye.